Alright, so now the reason why we learned factoring. We are solving polynomial equations. So I'm going to give you just a second to read through this, and then maybe we can talk about it and make some sense of it. Alright, so if you have two things that are multiplying each other, they're calling them A and B. So if A times B equals 0, that means either A has to be 0 or B has to be 0. And so whenever we factor, typically the simple factoring, we have two things that are being multiplied by each other. Let's take a look. So look at this. You've got two things that are being multiplied times each other. You've got this times this. And whenever you multiply those things together, they're telling us we get 0. So that means either this has to be 0 or this has to be 0. So what you do in order to solve for x here is you take each set of parentheses and you set them equal to 0 and you solve. So you would add 3 on this one. So I get that x is equal to 3, and I'm going to add 8 on this one, and I get that x is equal to 8. So x is either equal to 3 or x is equal to 8. And so you can check your work with these problems. Anytime you solve an equation, you can check your work. So to check my work, I am going to do this. I'm going to put 3 in for x, wherever I see x in our original problem. So up here, I'm going to put 3 in right there and right there, and watch what happens. Three minus 3 is 0. 0 times negative 5. Look at that. It is 0. Okay, so now let's check out 8. So I'm going to try out 8. So I've got 8 minus 8 in that second parentheses. I've got 8 minus 3 in the first set of parentheses. 8 minus 3 is 5. 8 minus 8 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. Look at that. So I know that these things work. They are what x is. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. This one isn't factored for us, so that means we're going to have to do the factoring. So I've got, let's see here, I want 1 times negative 21, so I'm going to write negative 21 off to the side. I want factors of negative 21 that add up to be negative 4. So here are all my factors of negative 21. I've got negative 1, positive 21, positive 1, negative 21, negative 3, positive 7, or positive 3, negative 7. There's only one of those that adds up to be negative 4, and it's this one. So this thing factors to be x plus 3 times x minus 7. So now to solve this for x, so I'm going to take each set of parentheses and set them equal to 0. And solve. Okay, so those are my two solutions. Now, can I check my work? Absolutely. So I'm going to put in negative 3 where I see x in my original problem. So I've got negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 3 minus 21. Does this equal 0? We're checking. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. 9 plus 12 is 21. 21 minus 21 is 0. So I know this thing works. So now I'm going to try out 7. So I've got 7 squared minus 4 times 7 minus 21. Does this equal 0? 7 squared is 49, minus 28, minus 21. Does this equal 0? So 49 minus 28 is 21. 21 minus 21 is 0. That works too. So I know these two answers are my solution. Alright, so let's take a look at this one. And I want you to remember that in order for us to find solutions, it's so much easier to set the equation equal to 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 18x from both sides. So that gives me 6x squared minus 18x equals 0. So now I want to factor what I can out of there. They both have a 6 in common, and they both have at least one x in common. So what times 6x would give me 6x squared? X. What times 6x would give me a minus 18x minus 3 equals 0. And so now I've got this times this. So you're going to take each of those and set them equal to 0 and solve. So on the left side, I'm going to divide both sides by 6, and I get that x is equal to 0. On the right side, I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and I get that x is equal to 3. So now I can test my answers. I'm going to put 0 in where I see x, see if it creates a true statement. So I've got 6 times 0 squared. Does that equal 18 times 0? Well, 0 squared is 0, and 0 times 6 is also 0, and 18 times 0 is 0, so I would say that one definitely works. So now let's try 3. So I've got 6 times 3 squared. Does that equal 18 times 3? 3 squared is 9. 9 times 6 is 54. 18 times 3 is 54. That works as well. So I know that these two are my solutions. Alright, so let's take a look at this. It says the graphs of y equals x squared minus 10x plus 28, y equals 7, y equals 3, and y equals 1 are shown on the next slide. Use these graphs to solve the given equations. So we're going to solve this thing 3 times. So let me show you what this graph looks like. It's pretty interesting. Alright, so the y equals x squared minus 10x plus 28 is this blue line, this baby blue line. Notice that it crosses at 3, 7 and 7, 7. And whenever we solve this thing, we're solving for x. So whenever we solve this, I'm really hoping that we get these two answers right here. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to solve just the first one, this one right here. Okay? So x squared minus 10x plus 28 equals 7. And what is it that I'm hoping I get? I hope I get 3 and 7 out as my answers. So in order to do this, I would have to subtract 7 from both sides. So I get x squared minus 10x plus 21 equals 0. So now I'm going to factor the left side. So I wind up getting x minus 7, x minus 3, because when I add those together I get negative 10. And now I'm going to set each of those parentheses equal to 0. And I'm going to solve. Look at that. X equals 7. X is equal to 3. Well, that's what I was hoping I would get. I was hoping I would get 3 and 7. That's exactly what I got. Alright, so now let's solve this again. We're going to do number 2 this time. Let me erase all this. Alright, so now let's try number 2. So I've got x squared minus 10x plus 28 equals 3. So I want to subtract 3 from both sides, and I get x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. And now I'm going to factor this. and it factors to be x minus 5 times x minus 5 equals 0. So x minus 5 equals 0, I'm going to add 5. I get that x is equal to 5. But wait a minute, I get the same answer twice. That's what we were hoping for. Look at this graph. So I'm looking at this one right here. I'm looking at the blue line and where it meets up with y equals 3 at. Notice it only hits at one place, right there. So I was hoping to get 5. Okay, so the next one that we're going to graph is going to be this one. Now here's what's going to happen. Notice how my parabola is up here, right? Notice how the green line never even touches it. So what's going to happen is, I think whenever I try to solve this, I should come up with nothing. It should not be able to factor at all. And so it'll be pretty obvious that it doesn't work. Alright, so x squared minus 10x plus 28 equals 1. I would subtract 1 from both sides. Now, I want factors of 27 that add up to be negative 10. The factors of 27 are negative 1, negative 27, positive 1, positive 27, 3 and 9, negative 3, negative 9. None of those add up to be negative 10. So there are no solutions to this. And that's exactly what we hoped we were going to get, because that green line right here never touches that parabola. Okay, so this page right here, it says a quadratic equation. Remember, quadratic has a highest exponent of 2, has either 2 real number solutions, 1 real number solution, or no real number solutions. So at most, it can have 2 solutions. Alright, so whenever you have a problem that looks like this, you can't solve it. I can't take x minus 2 and set it equal to 8. Remember, you need to have 0 on that other side. So what you have to do is you have to distribute and combine your like terms, subtract 8, then factor again. So I get x squared plus 5x minus 2x minus 10 equals 8. X squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 8. So now I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides, and I get x squared plus 3x minus 18 equals 0. Now this is what I'm going to factor. So I want factors of negative 18 that add up to be positive 3, and those are x plus 6, x minus 3. I'm going to take each one of those and set them equal to 0. And now I'm going to solve. Okay, so those are my 2 solutions. Now I'm going to check my work to make sure that they really are my solutions. So I'm going to put negative 6 in both of those places where I see x. So negative 6 minus 2 times negative 6 plus 5. And I'm hoping that it equals 8. Negative 6 minus 2 is negative 8. Negative 6 plus 5 is negative 1. Negative 8 times negative 1 is positive 8, and positive 8 does equal positive 8. So I do know that that is a good answer. So now I'm going to try 3. I'm going to put 3 in where I see both of those x's. And I'm going to hope that they equal positive 8 whenever I get finished simplifying. 3 minus 2 is 1. 3 plus 5 is 8. 1 times 8 is 8. 8 equals 8. I'm all good. So I know that these two are the correct answers. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. Looks like a hot mess because of those fractions, so let's see what we can do about that. Here's what I recommend. I recommend that you get rid of the fractions. So in order to get rid of the fractions, you have to multiply by the common denominator. So what is the common denominator between 2 and 3? It's 6. So you want to multiply 6 times every single term in the parentheses. So 6 times 1/2 is 3. Don't forget your x squared. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 11/3 is 22x. So now I want to get my x's on the same side, or get everything equal to 0. So I get 3x squared minus 22x plus 24 equals 0. Now this is what I want to factor. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 24 and I get 72. Now I'm only going to be listing the negatives here because I want it to multiply to be a positive number, but it has to add up to be a negative number. So I am going to list all the negatives. 1 and negative 72. Nope, those don't add up to be negative 22. Negative 2 and negative 36. No. Negative 3 and negative 24. Those don't add up to be negative 22. How about this one? Negative 4, negative 18. Yep, those work. All right. So I'm going to rewrite the middle term using those two terms. So I've got 3x squared minus 4x minus, that's an 8, sorry, 18x plus 24 equals 0. Now I'm going to factor this by grouping. So I'm going to factor out an x. I've got 3x minus 4. Put my minus sign there. I'm going to factor out a 6 out of these guys. So now I'm going to factor this completely. 3x minus 4 and x minus 6 equals 0. Now I'm going to take each of these. I'm going to set them equal to 0 and solve this. So I've got 3x minus 4 equals 0, and I've got x minus 6 equals 0. I'm going to add 4 to both sides and divide by 3, and I get x is equal to 4/3 on this one. Add 6, I get that x is equal to 6 on this one. So now you can check your work still. So I'm going to test the 4/3. So I'm going to put it into my original problem wherever I see x. So 1/2 times 4/3 squared plus 4, does that equal 11/3 times 4/3? Well, let's take a look and see. I'm going to square 4/3, so I've got 1/2 times 16/9. 4/3 times 4/3 is 16/9. I'm going to go ahead and multiply these over here, so I get 44/9. So now I can simplify that, so I wind up getting 8/9 plus 4/1. I need a common denominator to add, so I've got 8/9 plus 36/9. 36 plus 8 is 44/9. That's what I was hoping I would get. Alright, so I do know this one works for sure. Alright, so let's take a look at the x equals 6. So, I'm going to use this space down here. So I've got 1/2 times 6 squared plus 4. Does that equal 11/3 times 6? Let's see. I'm going to square 6, that's 36, so 1/2 times 36 plus 4. And whenever I multiply this, I get 22. So half of 36 is 18. 18 plus 4 is 22. 22 does equal 22, so I know that this one is also my answer. Alright, so the question could be worded differently. They could say find your x-intercepts of a parabola rather than solve for x. It's actually doing the same thing, it's just now our answer is going to look like a point rather than x equals whatever x equals. So let's take a look at this. Alright, you still do the problem the same way. Find the x-intercepts of the parabola y equals x squared minus 2x minus 8. But in order to find the x-intercept, keep in mind that on the x-axis, y is equal to 0. Oh, look at that. That's what we've been doing all along, huh? Okay, so now this thing factors to be x minus 4, x plus 2. Take each of those parentheses, set them equal to 0, and solve. Subtract 2. I've got x is equal to negative 2 there. Alright, so now instead of having our answers look like this, whenever it says find the x-intercepts, we're looking for ordered pairs. So here's what you want. You want 4, 0, because remember y is 0 on the x-axis. And on this one you want negative 2, 0. So these are your two answers. And you can still check your work. You can check this 4 right here. You can check this negative 2 right here. You can plug it in and make sure that it still works. Alright, so if we have a cubic equation, notice on cubic our highest exponent is 3. Then that means that we could have 3 solutions, we could have 2, we could have 1, or we could have 0 real number solutions. So that highest exponent tells you the number of possible solutions. Doesn't say that you will have that many, it just means that there is the possibility of that many. Alright, so let's take a look at this thing. Notice how we have a cubic equation here because our highest exponent is 3. So I want to factor out what I can at first. Notice how they all have a 3 in common and they all have an x in common. So what times 3x would give you 3x cubed? X squared. What times 3x would give you a negative 21x minus 7x? And what times 3x would give you a positive 30? A positive 10 here. So now I'm going to factor the expression that's inside the parentheses. So this thing just going to follow us around. And this becomes x minus 2, x minus 5. So now you've got this times this times this equals 0. So we have to take each of those and set them equal to 0 and solve. So I've got 3x equals 0, I've got x minus 2 equals 0, and I've got x minus 5 equals 0. So on the first one I'm going to divide both sides by 3 and I get that x is equal to 0. On the second one I'm going to add 2 and I get that x is equal to 2. And on this one I'm going to add 5 and I get that x is equal to 5. Now you can check every one of these. So I'm going to put 0 in where I see x. I get 0 on the left side and 0 on the right. So I know that one for sure works. Now I'm going to try 2. Okay, 2 cubed is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 21 is 84. And plus 60. Alright, so let's see. 24 minus 84 is negative 60. Yep, that works. So now let's try 5. Alright, 5 cubed is 125, and 125 times 3 is 375. 5 squared is 25. 25 times 21 is 525. And 5 times 30 is 150. So 375 minus 525 plus 150. Look at that. It equals 0. So I know that that is a correct answer as well. Alright, so you might just want to read through this, and if you have any questions, let me know. So this kind of tells you the difference between solving and factoring. Alright, so that's it for this lesson. If you have any questions, send me a message.